Hello, my name's Rebecca Ibel. I'm with Contemporary Art Matters, and I'm sitting here today on Zoom with Lynton Wells. He is an artist, a painter, a New York resident, and someone I've worked with on and off for close to 20 years. It's been a great privilege working with you and getting to know your art, which challenges me and delights me and amazes me. And so I'm really looking forward to having a conversation and learning a little bit more about the background and what makes you tick. So this morning I was thinking, where did it start? What made you want to go to art school?
I don't think I had any other desire at that point about school. And I had heard about RISD. My high school art teacher had a former student that went to RISD and talked about it quite a bit. And so I decided I would go and take a look. I did. It was a very nice place, sort of right in downtown Providence.
So
and
you were a big art student in high school, or?
Yes, I was an art student in high school and got a few awards and decided that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. What exactly I wanted to do, I wasn't sure. So when I went to RISD, I went into I've even forgotten what it was, but it was designing things, furniture, cars, industrial design.
Industrial design.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I went into. And I lasted about 3 months in there, and then I left. It was so boring, you have no idea. Anyway.
And so tell me a little bit about what you were reading or thinking about, or what the climate was like when you went to school.
Well, I had an interesting time where I was living with my parents. It was in Northport on Long Island. And it turns out that the summer before I went to school, Jack Kerouac moved into Northport with his mother. And it was right next to a friend of mine at school. So the friend said, "You want to meet Jack?" I said, "Sure." So I did. And we got along pretty well. We talked all summer long. It was fun.
That must have left a pretty good impression.
Yes, he was a nice guy. I liked him.
One of the things I think is that appeals to me in your work is you seem to, move to the beat of your own drum. Is that maybe something you got from Jack Kerouac? Not following the crowds and doing your own thing?
Maybe so. I mean, even in high school or in school, I didn't want to go with the crowd. I didn't think that was that interesting, frankly. And Jack sort of agreed with me at that point. But,
I'm sure I would have loved to have heard those conversations. And then how did you get to Cranbrook?
At RISD, I was doing sculpture, and I had a teacher, Julius Schmidt, and he was pretty good. I liked him, and we talked a lot. And then he left RISD and went out to Cranbrook. So when I went to Rome on my last year, they sent me to Rome on my last year at RISD. And so when I got back to RISD, I had gotten a scholarship to Cornell. I lasted at Cornell probably another 3 months. It was again very academic, very boring. And so I left, and I needed to get a job. So I booked on a ride with a friend of mine who was going down to Washington. So I went down to Washington, got a job at the Phillips Collection.
Wow.
And I was working there and a guard, and Phillips asked me to give a few lectures. I did. And then I decided I'd try to go to Cranbrook where Julius was. And they accepted me and he gave me a scholarship. So that was very nice. So the next September, I went out there,
How
stayed there for
awesome.
3 years. Met my wife out there, Margaret,
Yes.
and we got married. Yes,
In school or right out of school or?
in my second year of school.
Wow. Young newlyweds still in college. How sweet.
Yeah, well, she had graduated because she didn't. She went right from. She actually had gone to Cornell, and went from Cornell right to Cranbrook. So
Oh, how wonderful. And so how did you end up in New York?
well, that was where the art world was. So that was the center of the art world. That was
So
where I
there was
wanted to
no
go.
choice. That was it.
That was it. Yeah. But no, we moved back to Providence first, so I could uh, sort of get settled, and then I was starting to look into trying to get to New York, and I needed a job. And a friend of mine, who, when I was over in Rome, was on a fellowship to France. He was in Paris, and so I stopped in Paris when I did a tour of Europe there, and saw him, and he said, "Well, I'm going to try and get to the Whitney because I know some people who work at the Whitney." So he called me when I got back and said, "Stop by the Whitney. I think they'd like to hire you." So I did, and they hired me, and I moved down to New York with an aunt who lived in Jamaica, and started looking around for a place of my own in Margaret's.
So
And
your
she stayed in.
first two jobs were at the Phillips and at the Whitney.
Yes.
That's a good start. Pretty good start.
So that was pretty good, and I finally found a place down in Midtown. And,
So the first time I saw your work was at Holly Solomon Gallery in Soho.
right.
How did how did you get there? What was your trajectory?
Uh,
Because you were making these very large photographic based paintings of your studio.
yes. Yes. Uh,
Very minimal and the opposite of the opulence behind me.
well, yeah, maybe so, but the in the landscapes I'm doing now, there's a wall plug and electric wires, and it's back
It's
to
still
that.
a studio wall.
Yeah. Um, I had a friend who had been director of the Fishback Gallery, a fellow by the name of Donald Droll. And Donald and I were pretty good friends. And he had a gallery at that point up on near 57th Street. And I had a show there. And then he was having some problems, maybe personal problems or whatever. And I remember I ran into Holly a number of times, and she was always very nice, and thought that if I wanted to, I could show with her.
She
And
was quite
so,
a character.
yeah, yeah, she could be a pain in the neck sometimes, but other than that, she was fine.
I sort of loved being around her. She was so full of drama and energy and There was a great sort of chutzpah about her.
Yes, yes, that's a good word for it.
Um, so, not only in the art world, but in other places, people don't like it when you change styles so dramatically. And you seem to have moved away from the photographic based work into a whole new world. How did that sort of transition go?
Well, the people hate the change, especially the change that drastic, I guess is the word to put. Probably because it affects the marketplace. That's what they don't like. I mean, they like selling the paintings or the photographs. As long as they're selling, they're happy. Once you change, they're not so happy anymore.
They have to start over. So I remember also getting to know you and visiting your studio in Soho, but it was really through Dave Hickey that we got to spend more time together. What he was doing at UNLV was really inspirational to me because it was at a time where New York was still the center of the art world, and he was just embarking on a remarkable course with his Site Santa Fe exhibition, and then the whole program of artists out at UNLV, sort of, again, not following any sort of trendy line, but creating his own new path.
Yes, he was interested in what he was interested in. Yes, he wasn't interested in what we sort of agreed on that, what the others were doing. Yes. Yeah.
And in that show, you had works that are in the same vein of what we've been showing and working with sort of acidic colors and flying houses and fish fishing and bonsai, electric bonsais. How did you build this lexicon of objects and ideas?
Well, while I was doing the photographs, I got really interested in the light, in the effects of light, and that I could work with the light and space, and therefore get away from all that flatness that was going on. I mean, everybody was working on the surface. It was going to be flat. That was the modernist ethos, and I wasn't interested in that.
But you definitely have ulterior agendas. There's nature and it sneaks into your work, and the peril of nature.
The peril of, well, you can see beyond me here outside.
Not really. I can only see the chandelier.
Oh, really? All right. I'll answer your question, really. Here, hang on a second.
Okay.
We're going for a little tour, not a big deal, but I just want you to see what I see most of the day. Okay. Well, I'll just stay here.
It's beautiful. Wow, that's a pretty lush environment. I can see where the inspiration comes from.
Yes. Yes. And Margaret and I bought this property in 1976. And got the house built by 1980.
So it was really around that time where you started making a lot of these changes in your painting as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So that the natural environment, I wouldn't necessarily consider you a landscape painter per se, but you could see how the nature really comes into your work.
Yes.
And the color palette, all these sort of what one might think of as artificial colors. Where do those come from?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I started using. I didn't want to make it natural. because as you can see, the paintings aren't natural.
No, they're otherworldly. And
Yeah.
the technique you use of using raw pigments gives it that intensity.
Yes.
And the way you work sort of negatively and using design, what do you think about when you're sort of building them?
Well, when I'm working, when I'm painting, I do a drawing on the canvas first, and regular pencil, I guess, and then I work with black ink and raw pigment. And basically, most of the work is used with razor blades. All that white is really um, done with razor blades.
And
Going
it does
back,
bring an intensity and a sharpness to it, quite literally, huh?
yeah.
Um, well, I think one of the things that becomes more and more sort of current and relevant today is obviously the attention to our environment and our changing environment and the fragility of our environment. And these are otherworldly paintings, are almost sometimes like dioramas,
Mm-hmm.
as way you might go into a future natural history museum and see what the world once looked like.
That's a good, nice way of putting it. Thank you.
um, I hope that we're able to keep some of the natural world till we get to that place, or we don't get to that place.
Yeah, it would be nice.
You've always been fairly cryptic in talking about the work.
Well, I think it sort of explains itself. I mean, I've been teaching at school for a while, and I've been around artists for a while, and I listen to their talk about their work.
How has teaching influenced the way you work? You must enjoy it.
Oh yes, I like dealing with the kids. Yeah, definitely. It's good
I
to
think
see them.
your work um, seems very hip and relevant, and not um, it belies your maturity.
Well, I guess the answer to the question about how my teachings influence my work, um, I like to show it to the kids, or they get curious and they want to see something. So every once in a while, they can come to the studio, and I like to hear their reaction, because it's certainly an unlearned reaction at that point. It's pretty direct and pretty sincere. So that's a big part of it.
It is. I'm looking forward. We're hosting an event at your studio in September during Armory Week. And I look forward to welcoming people into your studio in Soho. It is sort of the classic Soho studio live work situation. And there's something magical about being in an artist studio, seeing the work and demystifying the process a little.
Okay, so I better get a few paintings done before September.
Get to work.
Okay.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that, and looking forward to our next project. I have a beautiful piece of paradise behind me. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this up and say thank you, Lynton. It's been a pleasure working with you, and it's fun to have a conversation with you. Our studio visit at Lynton Wells Studio is Friday, September 10th in the morning, 9 to noon. It's during the Armory Week. There'll be a number of events going on in the city, and we look forward to hosting a breakfast in your studio.
Great.
All right,
Okay.
Lynton, thank you so much.